Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 13. I guess we're here for Lucky 13, huh, Steve?
I hope.
So today I have Steve G sitting here with me, and Steve is going to read one of his favorite readings from the literature. And Steve, I'll pass it over to you now. Just start that out.
Okay, this is a reading from the back of the book and one of the stories, and it was real important to me a few years ago when I was going through something, and maybe it'll hit home for somebody out there. It's from the story He Who Loses His Life. It's in the third edition of Alcoholics Anonymous. For me, AA is a synthesis of all the philosophy I've ever read, all the positive, good philosophy, all of it based on love. I've seen that there is only one law, the law of love, and there are only two sins. The first is to interfere with the growth of another human being, and the second is to interfere with one's own growth.
Right. And that's from He Who Loses His Life in the back of the book, right?
Correct.
Very nice. I like that. All right. So at Sober Speak, you're going to find podcasts of people sharing their story of recovery, much like you do at an AA speaker meeting. These men and women, men in this particular case, will tell us their story centered around the AA 12 steps of recovery. My name is John M., and I am an alcoholic. I'll be the host of this episode number 13. We welcome all of your comments. We'd love to hear from you. You can get in touch with us at feedback@soberspeak.com. In fact, you could just go to the website if you'd like to, soberspeak.com, and find us there to give your feedback. SoberSpeak is a self-supporting institution through our own contributions. We are not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. We do not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorse nor oppose any causes.
Please remember, we do not speak for any 12-step community. We represent only ourselves. We are here to share our experience, strength, and hope of recovery with those who wish to come along for the ride. Take what you want and leave the rest.
Thank you, Mr. Steve G. So just on the start here, go ahead and give us your sobriety date so people know it's possible to stay sober for extended periods of time.
By the grace of God and Alcoholics Anonymous, it's November 7th of 1997. It's unbelievable to me.
That is unbelievable. All of us, right? It's a day at a time, and like you said, by the grace of God. So I want to start with a real hard-hitting question here, all right? And the hard-hitting question is, how long have you been riding that Harley that I see you on sometimes?
That one only a couple of years. I bought my first bike after I sobered up.
Really? Oh, so you had never, or at least not on a consistent basis, getting on the back of or on the top, or however you call that, on a motorcycle until after you sobered up.
Well, I rode dirt bikes when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so what prompted you to get a Harley or a motorcycle when you got sober? Do you remember?
No, I don't. I had some friends who were riding, and I thought I'd join them, and took a safe riding class. And
oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, they have riding classes, right?
Oh, sure.
Is it like riding, like when you get your driver's license, like your 15-year-old has to take driver's ed?
No, it's similar, but you get to ride on their bikes. And, so it's.
I bet they don't have Harleys.
No, they don't. They've got a they've got different kinds of bikes, but I had ridden on smaller bikes like that. So,
Just out of curiosity, I don't know we're really getting off track here, but do you have to have a safe riding class in order to get a license?
No, okay. You can just no,
really?
You don't. You get a break on your insurance quite a bit. So.
Oh, God,
so most people do that, and most people want to ride safely. You know, I've ridden all over the western United States.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to ask about.
Every state west of the Mississippi except Alaska and Hawaii.
Really?
Yes.
So you on your motorcycle?
On my motorcycle.
My
one of my 3 or 4 motorcycles.
Right. On a motorcycle.
On a motorcycle.
Right. So you start from here in the Dallas area.
Correct.
And then you just go.
Yep. Last summer we went up around. We went kind of east, but we went up through Indiana and checked out Notre Dame's campus, and then we went along Lake Michigan and up across Mackinac Bridge and up into Canada around Lake Superior and then back down to Mississippi. So that was a pretty cool trip.
How long does that take? Like 2 or 3 days?
Yeah. No, it was about a 10 or 12-day trip probably.
Really?
Yeah.
And so, and where do you like find a hotel to sleep
yeah.
in, or okay? So you're not like
we aren't
pulling off to
camping,
the side of the world.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Okay, so you find a hotel wherever you can, and then just stay for the night and get up and go at it again.
A lot of fun.
Yeah, sounds great. And when you say we, is there a pack?
It's just no, it's just me and another guy.
Okay, gotcha. Cool.
We both have off in the summer, so
Good.
it's kind of nice.
Well, to me, the interesting part is you started all that after you got sober, right? People think that you hear this all the time. What am I going to do after I get sober? Am I going to be the hole in the donut? Am I going to
Boring and
wilt
glum.
away, right? Boring and glum. Am I going to have to do the polka all the time with all these old people or something like that? That's what I thought.
I don't think I've done the polka since I sobered up.
Well, that maybe we should go take a polka class together.
I'll watch.
All right, so tell me a little bit. Tell me about where you grew up. Yeah, I don't think you grew up in Texas, right?
No, I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri.
Missouri. And I know this is not why we're here to talk about
State
this.
of
but
misery.
Why did the state of misery? Why do they call it the Show Me State? Do you know?
No, it's just a saying, show me I'm from Missouri, It's kind of like a AA, I want to see the action, right? You got to take the action,
Okay, so it is like I'm not going to believe it till you show me type of a
Correct.
thing, right? So show me what you're talking about. Don't talk about it, right?
Sure.
Well, I bet they have the Show Me groups up in Missouri.
They do.
They do?
There's a show me group in Denton, I believe.
Really?
Yeah.
How about that? All right, so you grew up in Missouri. How long were you there?
Till I sobered up. Sobered up about 3 weeks before I moved to Texas back in 1997. So I'm a 55 model, so I was there from late 55 till 1997. I was 41 years old when I moved here.
You said you sobered up 3 weeks before you moved here?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's an interesting trend. So you were getting sober and moving out of the state that you had lived in for your entire life at the same time.
Correct.
That's a few changes going on at once.
A little bit.
So what prompted that move from Missouri to Texas?
I'd been going to AA meetings, mostly sober, for 4 years. Mm-hmm. And it just wasn't working in St. Louis. I had all my old haunts and a lot of memories there and stuff. So I just could not put the booze down,
So you wanted to get a change of scenery.
Figured I'd try geographic and...
well, most times geographics don't work, but apparently in this case it did.
Well, so far.
Well, okay, so that's when you... Okay, so... There's more to the story.
No, I...
so far, as of today, right?
As of today.
Yeah, but that's a while.
Well, I figured I'd give it a year. Mm-hmm. And if it didn't work, I was going to cash in all my chips and go to the Caribbean and just drink myself to death down there because I knew I was hopeless at that point,
Yeah. So you came down here,
mm-hmm.
and...
I had a relative living down here, so...
Okay. What's your relative? Like...
A cousin.
A cousin? Okay, so you just came to be near your cousin and said, let's just start over and see how it goes.
Yep.
Okay.
It's going through a divorce, so...
Okay, well, let's back up a little bit then. So it looks like you were... the cousin was going through a divorce, or you were going through a divorce? You were going through a divorce. So how long were you married before you came down here?
We were together 17 years.
Wow, okay. So you were together 17 years, you were getting sober, you were moving, you were coming to Texas, and that's a lot going on at once.
Well, they tell you not to make any drastic changes in the first years.
So you went ahead and just bucked the system at about every level you possibly could.
Probably.
Yeah. But actually, like I said, for you it worked. And so you got down here. How did you find a group down here? What kind of process did you go through for that? And was it a love at first sight with another group, or?
No, my cousin knew this guy who was going to meetings somewhere. Mm-hmm. He was going to ODAT over in Plano.
Yeah.
There weren't any. Frisco was it was 18,000 people when I moved here.
Right.
And
so were you living in Frisco at the time when you first came down?
I moved down here.
Gotcha.
And
small community at the time.
Yes, and my cousin was a friend of the fire chief, and he hooked me up with some people over at ODAT.
Gotcha. So how long did you go to that particular group?
Quite a few years, but it was my home group for probably about 8 years.
Okay.
Just
and then you moved up to Frisco, I believe.
Well, I actually went over to Legacy. Legacy, I went over there for about a year as my home group.
Yeah.
And then moved up to the Frisco group. But in the midst of all that moving and stuff, I had this fire chief friend of mine, and I had gone to the first meeting of the Frisco group, about 19 years ago.
Wow. Oh, so you were there at the first meeting?
Yes. Well, we rented a room at the college. I guess that was our first meeting outside somebody's home.
Really?
Yeah.
Did not know that. So you rented a room at the college. Like
for a little while, and then we moved it over to the Methodist church.
Okay, gotcha, yeah.
And we moved around a couple of different places there inside that church, and then moved over to Stonebriar Church.
Okay, very interesting.
But now my home group's in a different church.
Yeah.
And
what's it?
Shivering Denizens.
Now tell people, so the name of the group, once again, I just want to repeat that, is Shivering Denizens. For those of you who have read the Big Book, and I hope if you're in the program, you are reading that Big Book and you recognize that phrase from the book. Can you talk a little bit about, and I mean, I know the term, but do you know the history behind that actual
I do not.
phraseology?
I do not. I know it comes from the term shivering denizens of his mad realm,
Right.
King Alcohol.
Right. That's interesting. I'll have to Google that after we're done with this, because I'm sure there's some sort of history about how it got created or where it is. Who knows, right? All right. Okay, so let's. I want to talk a little bit about some of your background. Like I said, I know. Talk to me a little bit about your family and where you came from, how it shaped your sobriety, how it has shaped your experience in life. And so let's just dive into that. I know a little bit of it, but I probably don't know all of it. So why don't we just start there? What comes to mind for you?
I grew up in St. Louis. Like I say, I was one of 3 kids, middle child. My brother was 2.5 years older, little sister 5 years younger. And, you think I guess we all, our normal is what we grow up with,
Right.
So we don't realize maybe how dysfunctional it is at the time, you know. My father, liked his beer. He was, he had 7 brothers and 1 sister. Good Catholic Irish alcoholic family,
CIAs, as
CIA, yes. And my dad was the second oldest brother, second oldest in the family, and so we growing up, it was a lot of extended family. My grandparents were both born in Ireland. My dad's parents.
Oh wow!
And my mother was one of 9.
A lot of kids hanging around.
Yeah, and so on both sides of my family, there was a lot of extended family, a lot of cousins and stuff. My mother's family was a lot more dysfunctional than my dad's was, My father's family was more just alcoholic and functional. My mother's was
Was your dad alcohol? You mentioned he liked his beer. Does that mean he would? Do you know? I mean, I know we really can't quote diagnose somebody else,
Yeah,
but did he show the signs?
he drank every day. Yes,
Okay, gotcha.
but he went to work every day.
Right.
He was he was a functional alcoholic.
Did it
On the
affect his-
weekends, he his day started a little earlier on weekends. But
Did it affect his mood, so to speak, around the house, or was it fairly consistent?
it was pretty consistent. A lot of he kind of, as I started realizing about 7 or 8, 10 years old, that my dad was my mom's caretaker. She had a lot of mental issues.
Help describe it.
Depression.
Right.
Depression and now it was diagnosed back then as manic depressive, I believe. Now it's bipolar.
Yeah.
Same stuff. Or she'd close all the drapes and crawl in the bed for a month or two at a time.
Wow.
My dad would be doing, going to work and taking care of us kids and
All three.
then she'd be get out of the bed and paint the house in a week.
Right. Yeah.
It was just and you don't realize how crazy that is until you get older.
Right.
But my dad's family was awful lot of fun. Grandma and Grandpa lived next door to my Uncle Jack, and that's where we spent a lot of weekends.
Yeah.
All the holidays. And it was just hilarity. My dad had a bunch of crazy drunk brothers who were they were fun drunks though. I never saw any of the anger, or anything. And so it was a lot of fun.
So good. So in some respects, you had a good childhood. Another this is like most of us, right?
I think
it's a
so.
mix of everything.
I think so, but I guess at about age 12, my mom, I went to the psych ward with my dad to see my mother.
What was she there for? Do you remember?
No.
Okay. Was that the first time she'd been there, or?
It's the first time I had any knowledge of it.
Right,
I don't know that it was the first time she was there.
Right.
But it's
Were your other brothers and sisters with you? Or
my mom, my brother, and my sister didn't come. It was just myself, and I just was worried about her, and I was even more worried when I left there because psych wards back in the mid to late '60s were, pretty different.
Like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was quite a bit different.
So you went to go see her. That's
Yeah, and it kind of terrified me, and from that point on, we'd about every 2 or 3 years she'd check into a psych ward. Well, we'd check her in, and we'd tell everybody that she had pneumonia again.
right.
It was the little
Right.
little secrets,
Right.
and try to look normal, or whatever normal was, but
Yeah.
we'd get her tuned up, and she'd be okay for a couple of 3 years, and
Right.
kind of spin out of control again.
Do you have any idea what they did to tune her up? Was it medicine? Was it treatment?
It was mainly medicine. I know she had shock treatments a few times, whatever they did concerning that. My brother just moved away when he went to college, never came back, and it was kind of how he dealt with it. And my little sister and I kind of tried to help my dad out a lot.
Yeah. All right, so that gives us a pretty apt description of kind of what you were growing up with there. So, talk about your I guess like we already talked a little bit about your brother, your sister, how they dealt with it. Talk about them a little bit and what their spot in your life, I guess.
Well, my brother, he was 2.5 years older, and I kind of resented him when I was a kid because he was always in the books, read a whole lot. He he had a clear vision of what he wanted to do in life, and he did it. He went to an Ivy League school, got a full scholarship. Went to an Ivy League school for his master's, and went to work. Lived all over Europe, learned a bunch of languages. I think he was fluent in 7 languages, and went to work at Merrill Lynch and in New York City, and lived in New York City.
Man,
enjoyed his,
right.
It was just what he wanted to do. And my little sister, she was kind of like. Once he left, I guess I was only 14 or so.
Yeah.
And Kathy was 5 years younger than that. So, I guess it was, pretty much her and I, and kind of, my mom was getting worse and worse, but she continued along that path her whole life, really.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So talk about I guess your brother and sister in terms of, where they are now, what progressed, how,
Okay. Well, so let me back up a little. I didn't start drinking till the advanced age of 12. That was when I first got drunk, and it took the edge off. I made it where I could breathe again, And so, I did that. I started doing that from that point on as often as I could.
Right.
And so
it's 12. Were you drinking how were you drinking when you were 12? Like once a week, once every...
weekends.
Yeah, the weekends.
Yeah, whenever we could get it. And, I'd obsess about it because we'd get it and hide it in the woods. And,
right.
I'd run back and check on it and make sure it was still there, for the weekend. And
do you remember how you got it? Were you having adults
older
buy
kids,
it for you?
Yeah.
They buy it for you?
We had some guys in the neighborhood who would come back from Nam. And they were just kind of hanging out back from Vietnam.
You can always find those kids and adults that can, contribute to a juvenile's delinquency.
It was funny because the first guy I got drunk with, his father was a veterinarian. And my dad and him had gone to high school together.
Yeah.
And so we figured out pretty quick, his son and I figured out that we could go down in the basement of his vet clinic and find outdated doggy downers and cat downers and stuff like that, okay? And so we could trade those to those guys that came back from Vietnam for the stuff we wanted. It worked out great, man.
Outdated doggy downers and cat downers. Now, I've not heard of that one before. I've heard a lot of them. I didn't even know that was available. I'm glad I didn't know that was available when I was young.
It worked, It was the drugs they'd give them for travel and that kind of stuff.
Right. Apparently they work on humans as well. Did not know that.
They did. Yeah. Apparently. I never liked that kind of stuff. But we pulled out his father's PDR, from his vet clinic. And
what's a PDR?
Physician's desk reference. It'll tell you what all the different drugs do. And so,
do they translate that from this is a dog dosage to this is a human dosage, or do you just multiply times the weight?
You just kind of figure it out, yeah.
It's a little bit of a roll of the dice.
Imagine that. So,
and then we in AA have a problem turning our will and our lives over to the care of God, but
we'll do it to doggy downers and cat downers,
in a PDR sitting on someone's desk.
So it was, so that's how it started, and then, you go off to college, and, I tried to keep my grade point above my blood alcohol content, but I wasn't real successful all the time. So, I struggled through college. It took me quite a while.
You get through college.
Yeah.
This was all in what college did you go to?
I went to Mizzou. In Columbia, Missouri, and they asked me to leave after 2.5 years.
And was there a particular reason? Was it like just the academic?
It was academic
Right.
probation for about 2 years.
Yeah, I understand.
Just keeping it right there, where they wouldn't drive me out of there. But so I went back to St. Louis and got into sales.
Yeah.
Did what I could. And
So when did you get married?
actually, in 1983, I sold in 1981, I sold a car to my future wife, and we started dating.
Yeah.
And we got married in '83.
Okay.
So
So that was from 83 to, what'd you say, 17 years? And then you...
we started dating in '81 until 1997, '98, where our divorce was final.
Yeah. No kids, right?
No kids,
Right.
and but along the way, you asked when my brother and sister, my brother, like I say, he was very successful. He ended up being vice president of Merrill Lynch when he was 28 or 9, and he could speak a lot of languages, knew Europe real well. So he was editor of the European Prospectus for Merrill Lynch that came out quarterly.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've got some interviews of him on CNN and stuff.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of cool. Transferred him over to DVDs. And so that's kind of interesting. He, in '86, he told us he had AIDS.
Oh, wow.
And that following summer in June, he came back from New York after Christmas '86. And that summer of '87, he passed away from AIDS at my parents' house.
Oh, wow.
So that was kind of tough, that's for sure. But
Did you get to talk to him much before
oh
he
yeah,
passed?
yeah. I could see him every day,
Yeah.
and it was pretty scary with AIDS back then. Not a lot of people wanted to visit and stuff, and
Right.
and I think we only had. A couple of my mom's sisters came over and saw him during that time, and one of my dad's brothers came, but everybody else was afraid to, really,
Oh, wow. So he's dying and he's ostracized at the same time.
it was pretty heartbreaking, but I used to throw him in my car. Well, not throw him, but I'd carry him out. I'd carry him out to my car, and we'd take him for drives every now and then. Just get him out of the house because he was in a hospital bed in my folks' back bedroom, and it's it was a relief when he died, as sad as it was, because it's a pretty horrible death. I think he weighed about 80 pounds when he died.
Wow.
You just that disease back then there wasn't anything they could do, really.
Yeah. Right. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And so, do you remember anything about the service or anything like that for him?
It's funny you ask that. My parents were still Catholic,
Yeah.
and I can remember the priest came down and gave last rites to him a couple of days before he died. And
Was he in the hospital at this time?
No, he was at my parents' house.
He was okay. Gotcha.
He died at their house. We had hospice care and what have you.
Okay.
And the priest went back and talked to him, and I was out front with my wife and my little sister and my parents, out in their living room and stuff. And the priest came out and said that he had given him the last rites, and God was going to forgive him for his sin of being gay because all the suffering he'd been through. And I almost punched that priest.
I bet.
I pushed him out the door. And so we had to have the service at my wife and I's church instead of the Catholic church. They wouldn't let us have a service there even.
Why?
Because he was gay.
Really?
Yes. Now this is summer of '87. I don't know.
Right, I understand.
I'm sure it's changed some. And,
Right. Right.
But So he was
And they were forthright about that, right? They said he can't have a service here because he was gay.
well, they made up some other
Right.
excuse.
I understand.
You know, but that was it was pretty brutal.
Yeah. So then let me shift to this then. That must have affected in some form or fashion your view of the Catholic Church as a whole.
I went to parochial schools for through second grade.
Yeah.
We got yanked out after that, and we didn't go back to church for many years. My parents didn't go back for many years, and I don't know what happened, but I think something happened between maybe my mom and a priest or something, or there was an argument or something.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I never
Right.
asked. It's one of those secrets again,
Right.
So I was kind of glad about it because I didn't have to go to parochial schools. I never connected with the Catholic faith. It was in Latin. I didn't understand it. I figured out pretty quickly that if the more you told that guy in the confessional on the other side of that screen, the more punishment you got in the form of Hail Marys and Our Fathers.
So how does that play out when you get a punishment in terms of a Hail Mary and Our Father? Does that mean you have to, what do you have to do? Because I've heard that term before, but what physically do you have to do after you get that punishment?
You go to the pew and you pray a rosary and...
Wait a second, and you're rubbing your hands together to pray a rosary.
Yeah.
So rosaries, when you say pray, so like you go to the pew, you get on your knees, you have those rosary beads.
And you count it, how many, Our Fathers or Hail Marys you have to do.
So like, what does that mean? Like, when you do an Our Father, what does that mean you're doing?
You say the prayer.
You say the prayer. So you could say, Our Father who art in heaven, you could
You
do
say
that.
it much quicker than that.
Right. But you could do that 10 times over?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really? So you just, so it's a
yeah.
rote thing.
Yes.
Okay. And what's the Hail, what's Hail Mary?
I don't remember. I'll probably get struck by lightning here.
That's okay.
Hail Mary, full of grace.
Okay, but it's a prayer.
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Absolutely.
It's a prayer much like the Our Father.
Yes.
So you get the rosary beads, and what is the idea of the rosary bead? Do you, when you say you're counting them, does that mean...
I have no idea. I should know this stuff, but I turned my back on the Catholic religion after second grade. The nuns didn't like me. I didn't like them.
You mean you didn't like the things on your knuckles or whatever they did?
And they could dig their fingernails behind your ear real well. And I got hauled out of church every morning just about. Me and Casey Stengel. Church every morning at school,
Casey Stengel?
Yeah.
Your buddy?
My buddy.
That sounds is that like a famous baseball player or something? Isn't there a Casey Stengel out there?
Wait, it wasn't Casey. It was... Maybe it's Casey something.
Anyway, if somebody knows the answer to that, email us at feedback@soberspeak.com, or we could just Google this after we get off the podcast. I could Google it now.
Casey Stengel was definitely a ball player.
Yeah. Go wait a second.
A manager or something.
Yeah. All right. So nonetheless, so I digress. So we were talking about how that affected your view, and and here's why I say that. You are not alone, and I was one of them as well, in thinking, people come into AA a lot, and you hear this all the time, and they have some sort of tainted view, if you will, of religion in general, right? In reality, from my perspective at least, religion does a lot of good, but there's also a lot of bad in there, and you have to kind of sift out what's in, much like AA, right? AA is not perfect, right? Sure. I mean, it's made of people, and if you come in and you want to find something that is unwhole, if you will, or a bunch of hypocrites, right? We always say, come on down, we got room for another hypocrite, you're going to be just fine in here. So if you want to, you can find what you're looking for. So when the book says be quick to see where religious people are right, how do And you went through the experience that you went through there with that one particular priest. How do you shore that up?
Well, I when I got married in '83, I got baptized, I guess, again. Got dunked again in the Presbyterian religion, and I guess it's like Catholic light, kind of, but it felt. I started feeling like, okay, I felt a little more connected. I mean, I always believed there was some kind of higher power, God, whatever, out there somewhere. But that first, the first and second grade really tainted my, it built in some prejudices against, like the book talks about, towards the Catholic religion, for sure. A funny sidebar, well, it's not funny, but when I was about 12 years sober, my Uncle Jim, my dad's youngest brother, passed away, and back in St. Louis. And so I went back for the funeral. And it was in a church, and the church was made in the round, like, where the altar was in the middle of the church. And all the pews were facing the middle.
Yeah.
And, I was getting irritated through that service because of the standing, kneeling, sit, and all that stuff that I still don't remember.
Yeah.
And, I could see faces on the other side of that church, though. And those people were getting exactly what they needed out of that service.
Right.
I wasn't getting anything as far as the service went. I was talking to God myself, but they were getting exactly what they needed out of that service. So that's the good that, some people, absolutely. I've got good friends that still go to Catholic church on a regular basis. And,
Different strokes for different folks.
Sure,
right?
sure.
Yeah, you
Without
get
a
what you
doubt.
need. So, we were talking about your mom a little bit earlier. How did that relationship progress once you got into sobriety? Can you talk a little bit about that?
It didn't get any better.
Yeah.
Well, by the time I got sober, I probably need to back up just a little because, like I say, my brother passed away in June of '87, and so it was just my little sister and I. And then in March of '89, my little sister was killed in a car accident.
Wow.
And so at that time,
Was she in Missouri?
she was in St. Louis. Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I went down to the hospital with my father, because she was in a car accident. We didn't know what had happened, and so we went in the emergency room, and they put us in a room off to the side, and I looked at my dad and I said, "Dad, this isn't good," And a doctor came in and said, "Mr. Gaffney, your daughter died instantly," And so we had to go down to the morgue, and they unzipped the body bag and all that stuff, And that didn't help my relationship with God. I was really, really PO'd at God.
Yeah.
I was angry at everybody. Anybody who had a sibling, I was pissed at him.
Yeah.
Because it's like, how come, why did you take both of mine,
Right.
and
So in '87, you had a brother and sister. Now it's '89. You're an only child.
And so, I was, prior to probably my brother's death, I'd say I was a very functional alcoholic, From '87 to '97 when I sobered up, it went downhill.
Gotcha.
I started drinking a lot more because I couldn't get rid of the pain. And my ex-wife, gosh darn, I put her through hell.
Right.
I'm sure, my sister was like her sister. She's got two brothers. She doesn't have any sisters. And And the selfishness that a lot of us have, that took over, and it was all about me and my pain, and so in '93 I started going to Alcoholics Anonymous, and '97 I finally moved down here to Texas and sobered up, I had stints of sobriety. Over those first 4 years I went to meetings up in Missouri. I was probably sober a year and a half out of those 4, so bits and pieces.
So you knew enough to be dangerous, so to speak.
Yeah, but also I knew that there was an answer here. There was an answer within Alcoholics Anonymous, and I just I don't think I was desperate enough to have to go to God about it because I was so angry towards God, and I realized that my way out of this mess is a higher power, whether I like it or not. And so, I sobered up and I moved, and that probably killed my dad, because now all 3 of his kids aren't living there.
Yeah. So when did he pass?
He passed away in '03
Wait,
when I was about 6 years sober.
Okay.
And, but I think he was angry at me in a lot of ways.
For leaving?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was pretty sure I was going to die if I didn't move.
I understand.
And my wife had decided, my wife of the moment had decided that, that she was done.
Yeah.
I'd gone treatment 4 or 5 times, and I can't blame her, Who would keep putting up with that, And so came down here. She helped me come down here and, helped me get my stuff down here and the animals. And we had a little cat that was my little sister's that I got the cat and the dog, and she we just split up our stuff. It was pretty amicable.
Yeah.
And
wow, so she didn't get to see you. I mean, she saw you sober up briefly, but she didn't get to, she just went through all the hell part.
exactly.
Yeah.
And my mom, she never came around really. After my father died, though, she wanted to move down here, and that was kind of a disaster.
Right.
She moved down here, and I had a nice place for independent living place, and she was still on that every 2 or 3 years of going to a psych ward, and so they'd call me when she'd get a little off and start getting mean to other residents or whatever, and I'd have to check her into a hospital for 3 or 4 weeks, and then I'd take her back there, and that's how she kind of went out.
Yeah.
She died about 2.5 years ago.
2.5. Yeah, so, that kind of comes under the account. We talk about it in AA all the time, but it's not all, roses and unicorns, and, sometimes life is tough, and you do what you can with what you have. And, I've come to the conclusion a lot, and I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and that is everything can be fixed, right? All we can do is what we do and leave the results to God, right? We take the next best action, but everything cannot be fixed. All right, so I believe you went through a time of boy meets girl on AA campus, right? And want to talk about that a little bit. So talk to me about your relationship, if you will, within AA.
Which one?
That's true.
No.
I understand. The one where you ended up getting married.
Yeah, I met a gal who was quite a bit ahead of me in the AA program. You know, she sobered up when she was 20, and she had a number of years.
So she would have had 20 years or so when you met her, something like that, right?
No, let me think. I met her when she was still married to her first husband.
Okay.
You know, probably back in around, I don't know, about 2000. Maybe 2001, somewhere around then, probably. And she was going to the Frisco group, and she was married and had a couple kids, young kids, real young kids, and you know, we'd see each other and talk, and you know. But she ended up getting divorced, and we ended up starting dating, and we got married in 05.
Okay.
2005. And so I had an instant family, you know, where I once had none, you know. And,
Right. So now you're living, so you've been living alone all these years.
Well, it wasn't all these years. It was from 97 to 05.
Okay, yeah, I guess, yeah.
7 or 8
but
years.
you've been living all of your sobriety, though, so far. Right?
Absolutely.
And so now you have a wife, and you have two good stepkids, right? And so y'all are all living together. Was that quite an adjustment, or was it fairly easy for you? How'd that go?
It was pretty easy for the most part. Yeah. Just they were good kids. They're still good kids, you know. We started doing the deal, and we're both involved with Alcoholics Anonymous quite a bit.
Yeah.
The Frisco group.
Carrying the message, doing the deal.
And we were real fortunate. We had a pretty nice home, and we would have 3 summer parties every year, you know, a Memorial Day, a 4th of July, and a Labor Day party every summer. And it'd be, you know, a bunch of sober drunks and their families. And it was really cool to see sobriety working.
Yeah.
Because I'd try to make sure any of the new guys that were newly sober, you know, and bring your family out, and you'd see them walk in like terrified of going to a party not drinking for the first time. and all of a sudden their kids are running around and swimming, and you know, they'd have a good time. It was really cool.
Right.
Really cool.
Right. What's the line in the book that says the most we are people who would not normally mix, you know, but you put us all together, and we can have quite a good time.
Oh, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we did that for, gosh darn, it was probably 6 or 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So take me through that a little bit. So, and then what happened after that?
Well, my wife ended up getting breast cancer.
Yeah.
And in the course of treatment for that, I guess she got hooked on the pills.
Yeah.
You know, and started using pills, and gosh darn, let me think. That was probably about 2012,
Okay.
2013, something like that. And you know, and it started getting worse and worse. You know, she was doing things that we do. You know,
Right.
just turn up missing, and you know, not acting right in front of me and the boys, and you know, it was obvious to me and the boys anyway that something was off. You know, and I tried to get help. You know, from her mom and stepdad, and they didn't see what we saw. You know, me and the boys had seen, and you know, but at the time, you know, obviously I'd been sober. I don't know, I guess 12, 15 years, probably close to 15 years, and you know, I'd been through the steps, and I had really good solid foundation of lot of sober men around me that
Right.
that I could count on and lean on, and you know, a good sponsor, and you know, so I would talk to the men in my life about what was going on, and you know, nobody ever told me what to do. You know, they would just share their experience typically. You know, and it finally got to the point where I started telling her that I couldn't live this way. You know, and something had to change, and you need to get help, and she would not. You know, the real sad part is I think she didn't want to give up that sobriety date that she had. You know. And it was already gone in reality, you know, and she just didn't want to give it up, and kept living that you know, in that lie, and you know, and so I did divorce her. We divorced, and her kids, she was in pretty bad shape by that time, and her kids went to live with her mom and stepdad, and she started, you know, she was living in a house that she had owned prior to our marriage. You know, we had never sold; we'd rent it out and stuff. And gosh darn, let me think. I guess it's hard to remember exactly the years, but you know, that was, so I guess it was about 2 years she was trying to get sober some, I believe. She went to treatment, and sobered up for a time, and I think
Was it
she had
more
some-
off the, when you say sober up, was it more off the pills or drinking, or do you know if it was, maybe you don't know, was it a
I'm not
combination?
absolutely sure. I've heard stories that it was both.
I got you.
You know,
Yeah,
but I
her
don't
story,
know.
right. I
That's her story,
Yeah.
and you know, and so in, I guess, let me think, January of 2017, so about 14, 15 months ago, she ended up committing suicide. She couldn't get sober and stay sober, and it was pretty sad.
Yeah, that's very sad.
It is.
So I guess, and I'm trying to think of the lesson from that. I mean, obviously there's a lot of lessons, and I'll just speak for myself and what I'm thinking about, and that is, if you're out there and you have gone back out, there's no shame, so to speak, in coming back into the rooms. We don't shoot our wounded, as they say. We're here to help, right? Not here to judge. And sobriety dates are sobriety dates, right?
Absolutely.
The main thing is that we do the next right thing, keep sober a day at a time, and just come on back in. All right, so I want to turn a corner a little bit, and that is, I know you do a lot of work with conferences, one conference in particular, and that is the Crested Butte Conference up in July, at the end of July. So talk a little bit about that, your involvement with that, what it's meant to you over the years, and share.
Sure. I'm definitely involved with, I like conferences a lot. Melissa and I used to go out to the Tyler Conference in January every year.
And so, just for the listeners who may not, Melissa is that the ex-wife, or the wife that you just talked about, right? Right. So y'all would go out there together?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And then we, and we ended up getting on the board of directors for the Crested Butte Conference. And so, it was, you go up there every summer. I was going up there every summer from, we got married in 2005, so 2005 was the first summer I went up there. And I haven't missed one yet. Hope I don't miss one for a while, till I can't breathe up there, But it's a week-long conference. It's a family conference.
Yeah.
AA and Al-Anon and Alateens.
Right.
It's
It's a great conference. I've been up there myself. And for anybody who may be listening out there, what's the website that they go to for that particular? We don't. Anyway, go ahead.
we aren't promoting anything.
Yeah, we're not promoting anything. But if you want to go visit this website,
If you want to have a good week at the end of July when it's 100 degrees in Texas,
right.
it's
lot of Texans.
cbconference.org.
CB like Crested Butte Conference
.org.
O-R-G.
And, it's got all the information there, but it's a week long, a lot of activities, outdoor activities, whitewater rafting, fly fishing, hiking, mountain biking, Jeep tours, you name it.
But there's a lot of AA meetings as well, right?
Oh, yes.
So
There's 4 or 5 AA meetings a day. There's 4 or 5 Al-Anon meetings a day. There's a speaker every night, Monday through Friday. It's a week-long vacation conference, more than anything, I think.
Right.
And it's an awful lot of fun. I go to all the conferences I can here in town. I go to a men's conference up at Lake Murray, and every first weekend in March every year.
Yeah. You just got back from that, I believe.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. And Gathering Eagles is Memorial Day weekend typically, and
is that the one coming up here in Dallas at the end of May? You're participating in that somehow.
No,
right?
no.
What's the one?
That's the North Texas Roundup. Is in. It's at the end of. I think it's typically the third weekend in August.
Okay.
And I'm helping out a little there.
Yeah.
But, And then the state conference is in June this year.
Right.
That's here in Irving, which is between Fort Worth and Dallas. So.
Yeah. And mainly, the main reason I want people to hear about this is because, I was talking to a family member of mine last night, and I mentioned to them something about the Colorado conference in Crested Butte coming up in July, and they said, "Oh, do they have conferences like that?" I said, "Oh yeah, they are all over the map. I mean, people don't realize how ever present. What's the word I'm looking for? There's just tons.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, it's everywhere, right?
And the thing I find really, especially the local conferences, when I've been a GSR and an alternate GSR, and which is a group representative for the group, and an alternate group representative at the district level, and so those are meetings you have once a month, a district meeting, and you get to know a lot of people from a lot of different groups.
Right.
And I did that for about 8 years, So it's fun going to these local conferences, especially, and seeing these people from around Dallas that I've known throughout my sobriety. And same thing with Crested Butte now, because there's a lot of Texas people, a lot of people from Austin, San Antonio, Houston, go up to Crested Butte for that conference.
Those darn Texans going up to Colorado and ruining their.
Well, if you look at a map of the Republic of Texas, 1870.
Yeah.
It includes a sliver that goes up into Colorado, and Crested Butte is in that
really?
sliver. Yes, so we're still in Texas, theoretically.
Good to know.
Yes.
A little geography lesson for those who tune in to Sober Speak today. So, all right, Steve, you're not going to believe this, but we have put quite a bit of time into this, and I've really enjoyed having you. I appreciate it. Once again, if anybody wants to get in contact with us, feedback@soberspeak.com, or just go to soberspeak.com. And Steve has something here. I was going to read page 164 from the book, but Steve has a little something that he is going to read.
I just wanted to touch on something. I referenced He Who Loses His Life, and it's a good story in the back of the book in third edition. And I'm going to read that little paragraph that I read earlier. It says, "For me, AA is a synthesis of all the philosophy I've ever read, all the positive, good philosophy, all of it based on love. I've seen that there is only one law, the law of love, and there are only two two sins. The first is to interfere with the growth of another human being, and the second is to interfere with one's own growth. And I leaned on that paragraph a whole lot when I was going through that time with my second wife, and trying to justify me finally pulling the plug on that, And I was killing myself by staying in that situation, and I wasn't doing her any good.
Right. Sometimes I believe it's easier to see how we are interfering in the growth of other people more than we can see how we're interfering in our own spiritual growth. All right, so once again, I'm going to close this out with page 164 from Alcoholics Anonymous. It says, abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. Signing off for this week. Take care now. Thanks for another episode of Sober Speak.